For those who are watching Malcolm on video, Malcolm is not in his normal place. For those listening, Malcolm is not connected to his microphone. We promise everything is okay. We'll be back in our normal situations next week. But we got a fun show today. It's summer. Things happen during the summer.
You say that, but I am on what I would consider to be a nicer part of town here in DC. And people seem to be in such a great mood here where like there's so much leisure happening. And, you know, I see a lot of people power walking up the street as I'm parking at this office. And I see a lot of people just kind of frolicking at the smoothie shop. And I don't know, I might have to move over here. Like my office is not in a place like this.
Malcolm, you look like you're in a holding cell. Like if you look behind, for those listening, Malcolm has like it's a very white background, and then it's like sort of a broken blue mosaic maybe window behind
That's
him.
high-end art, my friend.
That's high-end art? Okay.
That is some very high-end conference room art right there.
One of the things I've been thinking about is unpaid internships. Mm-hmm. There's this this isn't like a big economic story or whatever, but I thought it was very interesting because number one, I didn't realize how big of the internship economy is unpaid internships. Mm-hmm. And then also just this pure self-immolation of an unpaid internship, which it's kind of interesting to see. There's a worker in a New York City councilman's office. Her name is Mina Faramand, and she took an unpaid internship for the councilman who is Harvey Epstein. And she was working 15 hours a week unpaid. Then she started organizing for $32 an hour and health insurance and was told to leave. And my first question was with this is they were saying she was fired, but I don't know if you can be fired from a job you aren't paid to do.
Yes, you can be told otherwise you're trespassing.
Yeah, but that's trespass. That's like if you're a card counter at a casino, you're trespassed from the casino. Then there was some drama.
If you're relieved of your duties as an unpaid helper, you're trespassing at that point. So you can be fired.
I disagree. I don't think the word should be fired. I think that you're just told to leave. Now there's some drama. The councilman's office said that she was just she just wasn't doing her job. And so they wanted her to go. She said that she was an efficient worker and never reprimanded, which sounds like she spoke to a lawyer. But two statistics I thought were interesting with this story. Number one, it's that the New York City mayor, Mamdani, only pays interns like $18-19 an hour. So
what do you mean by only when you say only? Because that sounds good to me.
Living in New York City and compared to $32 an hour. So they want.
But you don't know how to do anything.
They want a 50% increase.
The whole reason you take an internship is to learn how to do something so that you have a skill set that's valuable enough for somebody to pay you market rate in the future. At the moment, you don't know how to do anything. Why would I pay you real money or what you consider to be real money if you don't know how to do anything? You're not valuable to us.
I was saying the number in comparison to the 32. So 32 is 50% higher. It's Mamdani, who is
where the hell did we get
Democratic
$32 from? Like, that is absurd. So here's my issue, and I'm getting irate about this for a reason. As a business owner who likes to hire young people and give opportunities to people who otherwise would not get them, because most of the time the finance industry says, go get your experience somewhere else first, and then we'll hire you after you have the experience. I have dealt so many times with young-ish people who come out of college and have these delusions of what they should be able to do and receive. And this drives me crazy. And so the idea that $32 an hour, I don't care what city you live in, if $32 an hour is what you need to sustain yourself as an intern in college going to school, go work somewhere else. You don't need to work in New York City then. You're not one of the fortunate few who has mommy, daddy money to live off of to sustain yourself while you're in the city for this time period between classes. It sucks, but too bad. Go work in Cleveland, Ohio, where $18 an hour will be a big deal to you as an intern, and then return to New York for school when the semester starts. I've now solved your financial problem for free.
Okay, I think there is a cloud somewhere outside that beautiful mosaic window that you can continue to yell at after this show. I think, so the issue for me is just whether or not an intern gets paid at all. I'm less caught up on the number and was looking more into the data of, I think it's 40% of internships are unpaid. And it disproportionately hurts poor people because it was like the Center for Colleges something for other interviewed 1,000 interns, did one of those surveys and then made a piece about it. And among Pell Grant recipients, almost half, 47% are getting unpaid internships. Mm-hmm. So you have a family that's barely scraping by. They're desperate for their kid to get work experience, hoping that that leads to a better salary and better connections in the future. And you're punishing them even more by saying, yeah, we're doing you such a big favor to give you this work experience that we want you to do this for free in between the summers, and making it even harder for you to scrape by in college and then maybe even in your first years out of college. Like, that to me is the real where I am actually irate, is you should at least be paid minimum wage, because
I 100% agree.
You learn something. The idea is that, hey, we're doing you a big favor by letting you work here, and you're going to learn so much. But part of working is learning that you are financially responsible for what you're doing. There's a different amount of pride. There's a different amount of respect you have with your coworkers when you're getting a paycheck at the end of every 2 weeks. And so I think that this is what the story actually gets to, in my view, which is that in the United States, we have an entire unpaid internship economy that's pretty significant. And in my view, it's an actual question of, if you're doing work for a for-profit company, should that even be legal? Take nonprofits aside for a minute. Take city governments aside for a minute. I'm looking on LinkedIn, and there's AI startups. There's AI startups looking for unpaid interns. There's a human resources professional of a company I refuse to name on this show that has the chutzpah to put the purple hiring logo on her LinkedIn profile page to say, I'm hiring and providing economic opportunity. It's a 6-person team, and they want 3 unpaid interns for data entry, data analysis. I saw one. It's an unpaid internship to work in a nursing home. And granted, nonprofit, but still, you're doing heavy work doing that. And so I think this in and of itself is no bueno and not often talked about.
So you're talking about 2 completely different things. I'm going to agree with you in one direction and disagree with you in the other direction. I do believe interns should be paid at all times. I don't think anybody should have an unpaid internship. I've had people offer to come work for us as an unpaid intern. I actually ended up hiring one and paid them anyway, and paid them well, in my opinion. Because I think, one, you get what you pay for. If you bring somebody into an office, don't pay them anything, and then expect them to actually perform like a person who's being paid to be there, either they're going to end up stealing something on their way out the door, or they're not going to show up on time, ready to work like they're supposed to. So you want people to actually operate as if they are working professionals. You need to also pay them as if they are working professionals. They got to at least be able to afford to get on the metro and come to work, right? It can't cost me money to come work for you. That's indentured servitude at best. Worst case scenario, we're talking about some form of modern day slavery, and nobody wants that. So that's one thing you and I agree on. Pay the interns. I think minimum wage is only $7 and change. That's not enough. Probably should be at least double that. So $15 an hour feels right, regardless of where you are. Cool. The other piece of that, though, from what you said, the Silicon Valley ethos is a little bit different, in the sense that going to work for a startup as an unpaid intern is being done very intentionally with the expectation that you're going to get access to the network, you're going to get access to the resources, you're probably working on some concept or idea that you have in the back of your mind that you want to get access to the founder or the VCs who have backed that founder, that you can now ask them their opinion on your thing, and you getting access and exposure to all of that is enough to make it worth your while to come to work for free. I'm saying that with Steve Jobs in mind as the perfect example of who gets to do this. Steve Jobs went to work as an unpaid intern for a video game company, was Atari, way back when, kind of forced himself in the door, and then used the Atari network later on down the road to invest in Apple Computer when he had his own ideas and wanted to figure out how to get this thing going. So on one hand, yes, interns should be paid under almost all circumstances. However, in the Silicon Valley context of how these things happen, it's not a surprise to me that you would see AI companies saying, we want people to come work here as unpaid interns, and you should be thankful just for the exposure and the access and the opportunity. Not saying I agree with it, just saying I understand how that ethos is still alive and well.
I think it's insane. It should not be alive and well. The one I'm looking at right now for the AI development intern, it's got over 100 applicants for what could be 40 hours a week for an unpaid internship. Like there's plenty of demand for this as well, but maybe this is one of those times where you need an interaction between government and free markets to say,
like,
hey,
if I was in college right now and I wanted to work in the wonderful world of AI, I wanted to get an opportunity to get into a company, understand what AI even means, how it functions, how it can be applied, how I can take this thing and run with it. I might be willing to go work somewhere as an unpaid intern as long as I have the ability to live in my parents' house for the summer, drive my parents' car to my internship, or take the metro to my internship and get access and exposure to this thing for 8 to 10 weeks. Like I personally, might be willing to do that as long as those two circumstances exist, because I know that the trade-off on the other side is probably a lot larger than the summer that I just sacrificed in order to be able to go do this thing. Actually, I say that as a person who had an unpaid internship.
Yeah, me too. I had one as well. It was deeply traumatic. I wish I didn't do it in some respects. In other respects, it taught me some things.
Yeah, no, listen, so I had an unpaid internship at University of Maryland when I was in high school. I actually contributed meaningful work to a project that got sold to a Fortune 500 company that might even still use that particular piece of code in their cybersecurity software they're selling today. I don't know, but I can't talk negatively about it because the experience taught me a ton that I wouldn't have been able to use later on down the road. And I feel very positive about the experience, even though I didn't get paid anything for that work. I got a grade, but I didn't get any like monetary value out of that work. But I would do it again 10 times out of 10.
Spotify comments, let us know, do you think an unpaid internship should be illegal, or are you cool with the way it is right now? We got a bunch more to talk about today on the show. I know Malcolm has thoughts on Nvidia now having a valuation that is equal to what it was before the artificial intelligence boom. He wants to talk about Trump's financial disclosures, so I might let him run more than I run there. And then I've decided that I can personally fix Dave & Buster's as a company. After looking at it, this might be this might be my personal, there was resist and unsubscribe, the Scott Galloway movement to tell people to cancel all of their paid subscriptions to let the Trump administration know that they've had enough and they're sick of it. We were the #2 resist and unsubscribe podcast in the United States. It's an accomplishment that we've never stopped being proud of. Also, the difficulty of getting there is another story. However, my personal resist and unsubscribe movement might be launching an activist shareholder campaign against the arcade chain that has a bunch of flaws. Anyway, let's get into it. Malcolm, I saw this story in Bloomberg and immediately thought of you. Nvidia has lost $1 trillion in market cap, and the stock, its valuation, is the cheapest it's been since before the AI boom. It's not because Nvidia is doing any worse. It's because memory is in. Who needs a GPU when you can buy a memory chip, according to Wall Street? And, I figured this would be a place where you may have some thoughts, because immediately I went and thought, I've been wrong on Nvidia about every time since they leapfrogged the market cap of McDonald's in a single day. And I thought, this is unhealthy. This is unsustainable. Probably not good. And then I've been wrong about Nvidia since then. And now I'm looking at it and going, even though it's almost a $5 trillion company, $4.7 trillion, depending on when you look, 22 times forward earnings, that doesn't seem super frothy, but wanted to hear what you thought.
Yeah, I think investors are completely offsides on this trade. This is not the last time you'll hear me say this publicly, I'm sure, because I think there's a huge misalignment with reality and perception on the part of investors who are just chasing whatever is hot right now, shows up in the top 5 to 10 trades of Wall Street bets. And that's how we make our investing decisions as a people today. I say that for a whole bunch of reasons, but I'll try my best to contain it into 2 very distinct points. On one hand, I think there's a setup here for investors who want to add to Nvidia or get into Nvidia for the first time. I don't know that 200 and whatever dollars where it's trading right now is going to be the absolute best price that you're going to get for it. Even in the month of July, I think there's probably quite a bit of volatility coming for the tech sector as we get into earnings season in the next couple of days here. And that's going to drive the tech sector crazy. And so I think you'll probably get a better shot at pricing on Nvidia very soon. That said, even here, probably a decent place to start building a position. And the reason that I say that is because Nvidia understands the memory business just as well, if not better, than a lot of the companies that people are piling into and saying, oh, no, it's not GPUs, it's memory, because memory has the shortage. And that's where we want to be, because if there's more demand than there is supply, then, my college economics class tells me that that's the place to be as an investor. But there's this thing that Nvidia offers called the Vera Rubin cluster that puts together memory with a traditional GPU all in the same rack in your server, and gives it to you with their own proprietary software that helps you manage, maintain, and run the entire thing, which is the reason that the margins that Nvidia can command are like 80% at this point, because when it's all housed in the same box and it's all vertically integrated, you get it all from one place, and they don't have to spend much money on a sales team to go and convince you to buy each component individually. You just buy the whole thing from us in one bucket and cut one check. And so for Nvidia, they're perfectly positioned to take advantage of the fact that people have now come to appreciate the fact that memory is what matters in this structure more than the GPU originally did, because the level of compute that people need it to do is a lot more about inference now than it is about training. Well, that's fine. Like, Jensen Huang has been great about finding what the next parade is going to be and then jumping out in front of it as if he was there all along. So I have no doubt that Nvidia is going to be able to figure how to message to people like that's what the Vera Rubin cluster was built to do. You're singing our song. I don't know why it's been left behind so much the way that it has, if not for the reason, this is point number 2 that I'm trying to tie together in here as neatly as I can. The company just has a perception problem, which is that the average person is looking at it and saying, how much more productivity can Nvidia squeeze out of what it currently does? Who doesn't have Nvidia GPUs that wants Nvidia GPUs? Or who doesn't already have Nvidia's GPUs that wants them? Who doesn't see an opportunity to compete against Nvidia in the hands of any of their competitors as a better investment at this point? Because what else can they come and tell us that's going to wow us as an investor populace or as a shareholder class? So I think those are the things that are competing against Nvidia right now. It's the attention of the investor who doesn't actually understand that SK Hynix, for example, is going to be even more capacity constrained than Nvidia. So if your concern is, well, Nvidia can't actually build to suit its existing customers and its backlog, they're not going to be able to work their way through all that backlog that they keep bragging about. How in the hell do you think SK Hynix is going to be able to do it? Or Micron, or whoever else is the new hot name that people are chasing. So I think there's a huge opportunity there longer term. I don't know that that means tomorrow morning the share price goes from 200 to 250. I would be looking at it if it wasn't already the 3rd largest holding in my own personal portfolio. And that's even after I trimmed it twice this year. So I just don't have more room to own more Nvidia. But I do think this looks like an opportunity where what the market is seeing and what is actually happening fundamentally under the surface at the company don't match.
It can be fixed in your view with a press release because they do a different type of memory than the big memory players that are getting a bunch of heat right now, in a good way, heat from the stock market.
Yeah.
When I look at Nvidia, and I know this is silly, this is pea-brained thinking. Yes, I know it's 22 times earnings, but do you know how like your brain actually can't perceive the size of our solar system? Like you can get a bunch of numbers on how big the sun is or how many stars are in the galaxy. And you can say, yes, I'm looking at a number of X many light years, but just for my capacity of my brain, I can imagine 100 feet, but I can't imagine, 2 light years. It's kind of how I feel about $5 trillion. I'm like, one company is $5 trillion. Like, what else can you do? And I know that type of thinking has kept me from jumping in at 1.5 trillion, 2 trillion, 3 trillion. So I am trying to grapple with that part of my brain where I know that is a bias that I have, where I think that, the bigger the number, the harder it is to double, except increasingly it seems in the case of big technology companies.
Here's the example that I heard somebody give. It's not related to this, but it's related to this. They were talking about Elon Musk and the fact that, to your point, our pea brains can't even really fathom how large $1 trillion is, or what it means for a person, an individual person, to be in control of $1 trillion of net worth. And the example I got was, if you, as an individual person, were to drop a penny on the ground, you'd look at it and go, and keep walking. Well, sorry. If you were a person who makes $100,000 a year, you drop a penny on the ground and you go, I'm not going to bend over to pick it up. The equivalent for that, for Elon Musk, would be if he was to drop $100,000 on the ground, he would look at it and go, not worth picking it up. Like, that's the context that we're talking about here.
Sure.
That does help your brain go, oh crap, like I have to work an entire year to earn the amount of money that he would drop on the ground and just keep walking by.
This episode is sponsored by Capital Area Planning Group. Capital Area Planning Group is a fiduciary wealth management firm that specializes in helping high net worth individuals and families navigate the complexities that come along with managing concentrated stock options, multiple income streams, and an ever-changing tax code. While our team of certified financial planners are well-versed in all things personal finance, our areas of expertise include equity compensation, estate planning, and multi-year tax planning. At Capital Area Planning Group, we believe in pricing transparency. That's why our fees are posted on our website, right alongside the various services we perform on behalf of our clients throughout the year. If you're tired of receiving the same cookie-cutter advice from your financial advisor, then don't wait. Reach out to us today at capgllc.com to experience a better approach to wealth management. Again, that web address is www.capgllc.com.
I know you've been wanting to talk about the President Trump financial disclosures for a while. So this is going to be your opportunity. You're going to need to bring me into this because it's 100 degrees out in Denver, Colorado. It's like, I'm sweating. It's hot out. Can I care about crypto when it's 100 degrees out in July? I thought of this quote from Tim Dillon before he had Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan, the New York Times reporters, have a book out about Trump. In one of my favorite comics, Tim Dillon had him on his show. And he said before he had them on, quote, "Once you know that it's all a sham, how exactly are you supposed to care that much about how and why?" It's like someone rips you off. You go, yeah, you got ripped off. You're in a car with your wife. Here's what probably happened. You go, yeah, we got scammed. I don't want to keep going over this. And anyway, your thoughts on the Trump financial disclosures, Malcolm?
Well, so it's not even so much that like I'm dying to talk about this, because I told you, like, my political stance at the moment is kind of like, yeah, whatever. Like, what are we collectively going to do about much, if not any of it, because the American populace has voted the way that they have, and the folks who put this country together and its constitution decided that things would flow the way that they did. And so we got to wait it out, basically, is our best recourse at this moment. So anyway, like, what I think is important, though, is the fact that there's been this shift where initially you and I were debating, should Congress people be required to disclose their trades? Can Congress people be allowed to trade individual stocks especially in the companies that they have connections to and they are in conversations with and whatever, or should they be forced to buy ETFs and mutual funds and whatever? Traditionally, President of the United States, their money goes into a blind trust that's controlled by some other body at Goldman Sachs somewhere that they're not allowed to even communicate with about what's happening with their money while they're in office. Breaking with tradition is a president who says, forget all that. I'm not telling you jack about what I own, how it's invested, who controls it. Initially he tried to make the case that, my sons are going to run it and they're not going to tell me anything that's going on. And sure. All right. But now what we're getting is actual numbers being put to how much his family has made on this crypto venture that they've been tied to. There's been a lot of investigative reporting done on how pardons for people like CZ, who are crypto billionaires that, let's say, skirted the law at best, right? Have been able to buy a pardon. And one of the reasons that the pardon was for sale in the first place is because he's worth more to the Trump family outside than he is in jail, right? Because he single-handedly is capable of helping to push their crypto empire even further. Then they look into how much money his followers and fanatics have lost on this crypto venture. Meanwhile, his family has made something like $600 million or something directly tied to this one world coin that they've been a part of. Then we get the stock disclosures, and you get a president who single-handedly can move the markets with one tweet, and will single-handedly move the market with one tweet or one seemingly offhanded statement from a White House press conference when he says, I love Dell computer. You all should go out and buy a Dell computer. And then we find out he's got $5 million worth of Dell stock. Those are the kinds of things that I think. So we weren't really willing to galvanize ourselves behind all of the social stuff that people might take issue with, like encouraging people to go storm the Capitol, for example. That wasn't considered impeachable offense, right? That was considered, but by enough people that it didn't have the impact that it probably should have. The thing we as American citizens collectively care about, though, is our money. And the people who actually do, in my opinion, have a lot more wherewithal and a lot more to say when it comes to these kind of moments are the investor class. And I am curious how long the investor class is going to be willing to allow one person who has that much sway over their own individual dollars to use that sway in a way that doesn't benefit or, God forbid, hurts their pockets. And that is, I wonder, if maybe what we're starting to see. Because it's not a thing where people are like, there's a rumbling happening or there are murmurs out there in the ether where people are like, oh, that's messed up. There's the people who are lining up to try and profit from the trades. And then there's a lot louder people I'm starting to notice who are like, oh, we need to do something today.
You said people are losing money. At the same time, the S&P 500 is, if not it's close to an all-time high. So it's in general, people are like, stock market's good. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling wealthy. I can go travel. I can use my credit card. I can go out to eat, at least among people who have savings. So I think there's a broad consensus around that. I also, and I'm not defending anything here. I wonder it's like, how many people went into this thinking they were going to make a ton of money, thinking it was a safe, quote unquote, investment, and how much of it were people that were trying to, what's the word I can use? Transfer money to organizations associated with the president of the United States. So am I losing money?
Is crypto that you're referring to?
Sure.
Yeah. No, I think that's very obviously a way to put dollars into the pocket directly of the dude that you're trying to get to give your buddy a pardon.
So in most cases, you talk about how many people lost money or rug pulling, and it's, people trying to out speculate the other person. This one is a little different, where there may be something going on the other end that's a little different from picking a meme token and hoping it shoots up and you can trade it at the right time. I thought this quote was emblematic of, I hope this quote is written in history books. Neither the president nor his family has ever engaged or will ever engage in conflicts of interest, White House spokeswoman Anna Kelly said. All actions by President Trump and his administration are taken in the best interest of the American people. Can you feel the contempt? Just like, can you feel the contempt in that? And when you talked about the stock trades and the crypto trades, with the stock trades, his account is making a trade every 7 minutes.
That's wild.
Which is just, for someone who probably has some direction over it, the amount of multitasking you have to do to be in a hot war with Iran, lots of social and domestic issues, and then pulling the trigger on a stock trade every 7 minutes. Yeah, blind trust, whatever. I don't think it's a blind trust pulling the trigger maybe every 14 minutes.
I would not be surprised if this guy has the Robinhood app on his personal cell phone up, placing trades himself directly. That would not surprise me at all.
And then one thing,
what? I take that back. He's a very old school guy. He probably has a broker that he picks up the phone and calls and says, Johnny, buy me 2,000 shares of SpaceX. Like, I don't think he's on an app doing anything himself. I think he picks up a phone directly tied to his broker.
If I ever run for Congress, one of my campaign platforms is that I will trade stocks, but I'm going to tell all my constituents which stocks I'm going to trade 48 business hours before I make the trade. So you get to know what I'm going to do before I actually do it. That way, I can really serve the people.
Why do we like that better than you just having to own index funds?
Because you too can beat the market with my congressional stock trading picks.
So are you selling me stock tips, or are you selling me public service?
I'm not selling you anything. I'm selling you. I'm not selling anything. It's just
you are. Well, if you're asking me to vote for you, you're selling me yourself for my vote. Are you selling me? I'm a great stock trader, and so you want my inside tips, and so that's why you should vote for me? Or are you selling me, here's how I'm going to make District 19 so much better by being your elected official?
It's that, but what everyone finds out in Congress, Malcolm, is that occasionally you get a good pick. You're at the congressional cafeteria. Someone on the energy committee is talking about some deal that's going to benefit some oil company you've never heard of, and you tune into that. You talk. There's only so much you can say about your district, your kids, the different sports teams. Eventually you get to the money conversations. You're not making a ton of money, so maybe you hear some picks getting passed around, and that's just something I'm going to pass on to my constituents. It's not my main job. It's just stuff I'm hearing around the cafeteria table.
Fair enough.
And then the other thing I will say to that, which makes me somewhat cynical, is that when you look at the backgrounds, if you look at the backgrounds of a lot of these ultra progressive candidates, they may not have a ton of money, but someone in their orbit is a sugar mama or sugar daddy, whether that is their parents, whether that is their significant other, which may or may not have a ton of real estate wealth, or somebody's parents that are closely connected with them. And then what ultimately happens is that we see power corrupt. There's been a lot of, I can think of one very left-wing person gets into Congress, and then what do you know? The tax disclosures of her husband shoots up into the right in terms of wealth accumulation as she has been in Congress for a few years. So there is an element of that, which is, you're absolutely right. Maybe you personally have come from nothing, or that's the story you're telling your constituents. But the time you get into Congress, you start hearing about those tips at the cafeteria table. You start hearing about an opportunity that could really help your cousin. And you know what? Is this stock trading thing, is that your number one issue? Do you want to focus on something else? Environment, food safety, immigration. Let's put your attention elsewhere.
Okay.
That's my thesis on that.
I was gonna lie and say I'd like to find out that I'm wrong and you're right on this one, but that's not true. I am pretty confident that I am right, and I also hope that I'm right. So I won't even say that at this point.
That you're right that this thing's gonna get passed?
Yeah, that I'm right that this kind of in-your-face corruption is going to be enough of a thing that charges people up, the investor class up, that they are going to be pushing for
blind trusts.
these
ETFs?
Not even blind trust, just ETFs and mutual funds.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I hope so. We'll see. I don't know if this is a good Substack piece, like a thoughtful Substack piece, or if this is something that is going to have continued real effects down the road. But it is that among people, I would say in our generation and younger, of a just not only slight distrust, but a complete distrust in authority and institutions, which in my view, it was like COVID to Epstein to these kinds of stories where you're just like, I don't trust those powerful institutions at all. And if that eventually has an effect on the stock market, or if that's just something where you can raise your fist and have very high and mighty thoughtful thoughts about it. But I am wondering, I'm like, is this a 10 to 30 year problem where people in our generation are just like, I don't trust this system at all. And I'm getting more information from the internet, good and bad, sometimes accurate, sometimes not. But that leads to just a complete collapse in trust of whatever the officials with suits and ties are telling me.
Time will tell.
All right, we can do Dave and Buster's. Anything else you need to get off your chest before I pitch you on
let's
becoming an activist shareholder?
Video games and electric lemonade.
I'm thinking about electric lemonade. I'm starting to think, I think this could be fun. So I'm going to workshop this idea with you. There was a story in Slate Business about how Dave and Buster's is opening the door to have raves in their establishment. And Dave and Buster's is a place that I actually have a lot of like childhood nostalgia for. I remember you walk through the dark hallway and then you get to the midway and there's an overwhelming amount of games of racing, ticket games, all kinds of stuff, and big Papa shots, and thinking like this is awesome when you're a little kid. Simultaneously, the company now has had same store sales decline in every quarter since 2022. So people are not going back there. And there's a multitude of reasons for that. I think value is one of them. I think they have not been able to adapt tastes to the growing trend of barcades because the system that Dave & Buster's operates within has been growing at the same time. There's more bar arcades opening up. And so one solution has been, let's put on events here. And one of those events is putting raves on to get people in the door. So we're going to have a DJ in the arcade. I don't know if the games are on or off, but one of the things that I think is so interesting about this is you're seeing, first of all, do you know how like CEOs love to talk about where their company is in terms of sports innings? We're in the second inning. We're in the third inning. I think by the time your arcade is saying, to heck with it, let's try putting on a rave, I think you're in late in the fifth round of a fight, realizing you need some sort of knockout. So you just kind of start flailing, would be my sports metaphor here.
You just changed metaphors from baseball to boxing in the middle of this, but I'm following.
That's it. That's okay, fine. You're in the ninth inning and you're down by 9 because you're realizing that you're losing money and you're going to make every excuse you can. We're going to have some BS back to basics strategy. But what I think that is so interesting about this is that the solutions are so obvious, and you have a management team that refuses to implement any of them. So let's just focus on some pricing things. Let's have occasional one-off events, and then we're going to continue to see traffic slide out until eventually maybe we get taken over or we have to declare bankruptcy.
So what is the solve that you are pushing for that you think is a better idea than live events?
So first of all, before I get to the solve, I think I need a title. You know how like there's a lot of like we're having this they have the back to basics strategy. Mm-hmm. I need to think of a title that's like, if you're against it, you sound like a jerk, like customers win, player won, like something where it's like when we're talking about this strategy, it's like something I can hang my talking points on. Yeah. I want to go in as an activist because I think the events are the right solution. However, they're not doing it in a way that's repeatable and sustainable. So you're going to have a rave sometimes, according to the Slate story. Sometimes you get 2,000 people, sometimes you get 20 to show up for Rave and Busters. I don't think they're taking on easy wins. They should be having local meetup nights for people who like to play video games but don't have friends to play them with. So Dave and Buster's, social player night. They should be having singles events. They should be going to every single singles mixer company in the cities they operate in and say, we're going to give you X game discount to host your next event here. They should be sending promotional emails and discounts to every single large religious organization to get those types of events back in the door. And so it's not necessarily about just having one big rave. It's having repeatable events show up in between those Monday and Thursday nights. And then the other part is marketing. They don't know how to market this thing. You got to pay local TikTokers and live stream to film themselves at Dave & Buster's having a great time and winning prizes. So I think they are missing the mark on marketing. I think they're missing the mark on local types of meetups as they try to go for these big splashy things. And then also they're not empowering local operators. So you look at how Barnes & Noble turned around in some respects. That's when they ultimately gave some amount of autonomy back to local operators to say, hey, you're in a market, Austin, Texas might be a different market than New York City in terms of your front of the store display. So I think you need to it's not a franchise. So you need to empower local operators to have some sort of say and a little bit more pride in terms of maybe game selection. I want more hunting games in my Texas location than I do in my East Coast locations. So you have those types of decisions being made. And then where was I finishing this point? I think you got to go everyday low prices versus this extreme discounting model where they just have some nights of the week where games are 50% off. And those are what I call the easy wins. There's some medium stuff in there. But I think that's part one of my shareholder proposal.
So the listener can't see this, but I was actually over here like smiling / smirking the whole time you're talking because I have zero affinity for Dave & Buster's whatsoever. I could care less whether it exists or not. You clearly are on the opposite. But as you teed up the idea to me before, I was thinking like the thing that would solve Dave & Buster's is live in-person events and entertainment. But I don't know that a rave is the answer. Like I've never been to a rave. I've only ever seen them on TV. But from what I've seen on TV, it doesn't really fit what you're going for. But I agree with you completely. If they were to turn it into a thing where on very specific nights, the reason you go to Dave & Buster's is to have X, Y, or Z. So on a Thursday night is family night, and we have 50% off games. So that you as a person who is a middle-class family who's looking for a way to entertain your family of 4 and not spend your entire paycheck to do it, you come to Dave & Buster's on a Thursday night in the summertime and all the games are 50% off. And we've got a menu similar to like Chili's or Applebee's or something where, you pay $40 for the entire family to have a 3-course meal. And so your whole outing didn't break the bank. And that was a fun thing that you got to do as a family while your kids are out on summer break. And everybody knows because of good marketing, to your point, Thursday nights are the night that you go to Dave & Buster's and take your whole family. Or singles night, like single people will go out any day of the week. So maybe you take your least popular day of the week, like a Tuesday, and turn that into singles night. And again, the games are not even necessarily discounted, but they're 2 for 1. And so I am encouraged to interact with another person who is coming to this singles night because we get a better price if we play these games together. I don't know. I'm just spitballing. Sure. But there's a lot of games that are 2-person shooters. Now you've kind of forced me into a situation where I have to communicate with the person next to me in order to get the benefit of turning a single into 2 singles or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Figuring out creative ways to encourage in-person dating in your location is a fantastic way to even partner with I can't remember the guy's name, Barry, whatever, that owns all the dating app companies. His holding company owns all of the dating app companies now. He was the Expedia guy and then rolled all this into one big cluster. Anyway, I'd be talking to him and say, listen, Barry, how do we put together in-person events between Tinder and Match and Bumble and whatever else in partnership with Dave & Buster's, and we're going to use your branding with ours to bring the people to the live events. And Like that is a easy way to sell some mozzarella sticks. So like I'm in agreement with you completely. Like
So
the solutions are obvious, and also their solution is obviously the wrong one.
So we need to practice then. So I don't have any shares by the time you're listening to this. Who knows? Probably not, but we'll see. I think we have a platform to go activist, because the shareholder proposal I want to put out is it would be a cash prize for local operators to put on regular events to get people in the door. So 50 grand to the operator. You got to put on a monthly event. Who is getting on average the most people in the door for the event you're putting on? And instead of having your events and experience director, some McKinsey person who clearly isn't working since traffic continues to slip, let's empower local operators. And I want that shareholder proposal out there. A, both of us have platforms, we can do it. And B, it would also be fun to get a shareholder proposal through. You were talking about your unpaid internship on your resume. Do you know what your resume is going to say when you've gotten a shareholder proposal approved by the majority of voters? And then we can go on to steps 2 and steps 3 of this plan, which is number 1, game selection. You can't just do ticket redemption games. We're putting in pinball machines. Yes, they're harder to fix, figure it out. And then also, like big, juicy, high quality racing simulators. So I'm talking about, have you seen like Cosm? Do you know that, where it's like you have the dome coming over people so they can watch live sports? I want like a 20-foot dome, and there's going to be 4 of them, and it's going to be high quality racing simulators. So you're getting people in the door, not just to like win tickets, but also have these experiences that you can't replicate at home, or you can't just put on a widescreen TV, in order to create those high priced but valuable, memorable, repeatable experiences. So anyway, all of that's to stay.
You've gone very complicated and very expensive on me. Like I feel like I just gave a
That's step 2.
No,
that's
but
after
you just
we
gave
get
me
the
like
proposal
step
through.
22. Like I feel like I just gave a very small mom and pop problem to a Harvard MBA from McKinsey, and you just Harvard MBA from McKinsey'd it up with that last one. Like I gave you a $2 problem, and you just gave me a multi-million-dollar solution. And all I really needed was, you said it already, invest in a bunch of pinball machines, invite people to come compete in pinball, and have pinball competitions that will bring people into the door to compete on 10 pinball machines side by side. It's very low cost. It's very low. What's the word I'm looking for? Like the technology is very small. I don't need a whole lot to do this. And just very simple things like that. People coming in to have a competition in pinball would bring people in the door and sell some mozzarella sticks and electric lemonades.
Okay. Electric lemonade, I think you need to look that up after the show, because I don't think as a part of our proposal, you want Dave & Buster's selling electric lemonades to the people.
Why not? However, it's like $30 and all the magic ingredient is blue curacao. Like that can't be that expensive.
I thought electric lemonade was lemonade with LSD in it.
Okay, well, you might be talking about something that happens in Denver, Colorado. Okay. Here in the nation's capital, at Dave & Buster's, the electric lemonade is like vodka, simply lemonade, and some blue curacao, I think is all that's in there.
Our email is thistimepod@gmail.com if you have thoughts on this. We're still workshopping it. But the next time you see Malcolm on CNBC and they're saying, hey, we're starting to see Walmart struggle. What do you think of that? And you go, Walmart is struggling. But what's really interesting about that is when you think of companies that are struggling, Dave & Buster's, the CEO of Varun Tall, totally asleep at the wheel. Meanwhile, there are a couple of simple solutions that shareholders can vote on and get through in order to return this company back to same store sales growth and create long-term shareholder value. Because Tall in there at CEO, his first slide, he goes, I'm going to create immediate shareholder value. And when you focus on the immediate term, guess what you do? You continue to burn capital. He has no idea what he's doing. And that's why some outsiders need to come in and provide correction for this great company that we have childhood associations with, that we want to see continue to go, that we want to see go back to profitability and prosperity, because that's what it's about.
Was that your best Bill Ackman right there? That sounded really familiar.
Is that pretty good?
That was pretty good. That was pretty good.
Okay.
The only thing you need to do from here is scrounge up enough cash to become a 5% shareholder so that your activism can make it to the board and someone who matters can hear you.
Carl Icahn was an activist investor for McDonald's with way less. It didn't work, but you can at least get some headlines. So anyway, just something to think about before our next show, Malcolm. I think we can end it there. You can find me on the internet. We get action on LinkedIn, so I'll plug my LinkedIn. I talk about the show there, Ricky Mulvey on LinkedIn. You can find Malcolm on social media platforms or clips of him because he doesn't like to use them at Malcolm on Money. Our email is thistimepod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Information shared in this recording and by its guests represent the views and opinions of the guests and does not represent the views or opinions of the host. This content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. This content is not, nor is it intended to be a substitute for professional financial advice. It is always recommended that you seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your personal financial situation.